In the village of Umuada lived a cooking legend named Mama Uka. She isn't just the village cook, she is the magic cook. The only one whose food made rich men forget city restaurants. Most celebrities charter motorbikes just to taste her bitter leaf soup. She didn't run a restaurant. She ran a shrine disguised as a kitchen. Her meals were beyond taste. People ate and wept, people ate and danced. Men abandoned their wives' dishes, claiming nothing ever compared to Mama Uka's touch. Her influence didn't end with food. She also handled village burial decorations. No funeral was complete without Mama Uka's canopy of death, crafted in black and white raffia, cowrie beads and masks that resembled faces no one remembered. Behind the beauty of her food and art, there was something more. Her staff were all men, young and strong, with faces that seemed dazed. Rumors said she touched them once on the forehead, and they never spoke again unless spoken to. And then there was Ugochi, her daughter, tall, curvy, and hauntingly beautiful. Ugochi could walk past a married man and leave his wife praying louder that night. She didn't smile much, but when she did, even birds stopped chirping. Her skin glistened like rain-soaked clay, and her eyes held a story most didn't dare ask. People whispered that Ugochi wasn't born. She was cooked. At the break of dawn, lines curled around Mama Uka's restaurant. A young man named Nduka, barely 23, took a loan to buy a plate of her famed oha soup. He never made it back home. Some said he choked. Others said he laughed until his heart stopped. But the truth? No one ever found his body. The next day at dawn, Mama Uka's restaurant opened like clockwork. The smell of jollof rice and goat pepper soup hung in the air like a spell. Laughter echoed, spoons clanked against plates, and the queue outside twisted like a coiled python, eager to strike with hungry mouths. Then she came, a tall, jittery woman wrapped in a faded brown scarf. No one had seen her before. She walked in silently, her eyes scanning every wooden beam, every shadow in the room like she expected something to leap out. "I want to use the restroom," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the noise. Mama Uka's attendant waved her toward the back without question. But instead of turning into the small latrine, she slipped into the storeroom, a place strictly off limits to anyone but Mama herself. Minutes passed. "What are you doing there?" Mama Uka's voice cracked through the wooden walls like lightning. She stood in the doorway of the storeroom, her chest heaving, her face twisted in something more than rage. Fear. I heard noises inside," the woman stammered. "Get out." Mama Uka's eyes widened. Her hands trembled, not with anger, but with something ancient, something buried. The woman backed out slowly, turned, and walked toward the door. 1 step, 2 steps, 3. No door opened, no sound, just air where she once stood. The air in the restaurant shifted. A baby started crying. Plates dropped, one by one. The customers abandoned their food and ran. Some screaming, some silent, all afraid. Days passed since the mysterious woman vanished in front of the crowd, and yet customers still flooded Mama Uka's restaurant. Fear and craving danced hand in hand. No matter the vanishing, no matter the whispers, people still came to eat. Then came another. This time a man, pale as clay, dressed in worn, dusty agbada. His face was veiled, but there was something familiar. The kind of familiarity that stabbed memories from the grave. He walked slowly into the village square. "Wait!" someone gasped. "Is that not Mr. Ease?" "No, he died months ago," said another, stepping back, crossing himself. But there was no difference between Mr. Ease and the stranger. The way he walked, the little limp in his right leg, the faint echo of his cough. It was Mr. Ease. The man did not speak. Instead, he held a plank card in his bony hand. It read, "I need food." The crowd parted as he passed. He walked straight to Mama Uka's restaurant. She stepped outside, squinting at him. No smile, no greeting, only the flicker of recognition. The man sat down, placed the sign beside him, and was served a steaming hot bowl of bitter leaf and pounded yam, Mama Uka's speciality. He did not eat. He did not move. He stared. Then, as suddenly as he had arrived, he stood up and walked away, leaving the untouched food behind. That very same evening, one of Mama Uka's workers, a shy lady named Chisholm, went into the forbidden spice room. No one knows why. Maybe he was dared. Maybe he heard whispers from behind the locked door. He opened it. "It's just a crack." He screamed, a terrible, gurgling sound that twisted the chickens' necks in their sleep. When Mama Uka rushed in, only his shoes remained, and the spice jars, they were bleeding. That night, the village was wrapped in an unnatural stillness. Even the usual croaking frogs and distant drumming were silent. Something watched from the trees, and Mama Uka knew it was time. Inside her kitchen, she shut all windows and lit 7 thick beeswax candles. each inscribed with ancient Nsibiti marks. She knelt before her cooking pot, not to stir, but to speak. Her lips moved fast. Words from another time. Forgotten words, forbidden ones. The pot rumbled, and then it answered. Smoke twisted out in spirals, forming faces. Some cried, others laughed. It was a scary night. Rumors had it that one of the ones she fed every time disappeared in her restaurant, but no one was bold enough to confront Mama Uka. They helped her. They always had. And the next day, her stew never tastes better. Long ago, it was Nkem, Mama Uka's childhood friend, who first led her into the deep part of the forest, past the third tree with two heads, where the Sisters of the Shadows lived. Do you want them to beg for your food? Nkem had asked her, her eyes gleaming. Do you want men to forget their wives' soup? Then kneel and speak to them. She did, and they listened. Now each night, ritual fed her growth, and each morning, her food tasted more divine and darker. It had all begun with a whisper and a famine of fortune. Back when Mama Uka's food never sold, when even dogs turned up their noses, she had cried beneath the odala tree. That was when Nkem came, clutching a carved bone, pendant and a voice that didn't fully belong to her anymore. There is a club, she whispered, a society of shadows. They will make them crave your food, but there is a cost. They led Mama Uka deep into the bush, where the air didn't breathe, and introduced her to the Sisters of the Shadow, silent, women whose eyes were stitched shut. The head sister gave one instruction: feed the living what was used to wash the dead. They will never stop coming back, and Mama Uka obeyed. From then on, every corpse water she secretly collected from funeral grounds became the base of her soups, boiled until not even the ancestors could smell it. But when Mr. Ease died and his body was washed for burial, Mama Uka couldn't resist. His body had been strong, his spirit was loud. She used it to flavor a special batch of agusi for the priest and dignitaries. And then the priest fell ill. Whispers spoke of nightmares, violent tremors, and holy water boiling at his touch. Now Mr. Ease's spirit walks at night. He appears at Mama Uka's window. His face is pale, sunken, angry. Each time she stirs her pot, the shadows of her victims rise from the steam. And though she pretends to ignore them, they are watching. The winds began to change again. That night, not even the crickets dared sing. The moon was veiled in a thick cloud, and the air smelled like burnt yam and sorrow. Inside her kitchen, Mama Uka stirred her pot with trembling hands. The broth boiled violently, not from fire, but from fear. She knew he was coming again. He had appeared once, but tonight, he would return not as a whisper, but as a storm. And then, the pot froze mid-boil. The candles blew out on their own, and the wooden walls began to breathe. A low growl emerged from the doorway. There he stood, Mr. Ease, no longer veiled, no longer silent. His eyes were glowing pits of rage. His skeletal hand reached forward, and behind him, the shadows of others Mama Uka had served rose from the floor. You cooked me, Mr. Ez's voice cracked like firewood. Now it's your turn to be eaten. Mama Uka screamed, backing against the wall, but her feet would not move. Her strength, the one gifted by corpse water and forbidden spice, was failing, and Mr. Ease wasn't alone anymore. He brought a crowd. Dragged by invisible chains, Mama Uka was pulled into the spirit realm. She didn't walk. She glided backwards through walls, forests, silence, smoke, until she arrived in a dark, red-lit abyss, where the sky cracked like old bone and the wind whispered names she had long forgot. Before her stood 4 spirits, cloaked in tattered black, their faces skeletal, their voices thunderous. Mama Uka, the middle one growled, you fed us to the living. Now we feed on your truth. They circled her. Each step made the ground tremble. Behind them, countless ghostly villagers, victims of her meals, watched with hollow eyes, some mouthing silent screams, others shaking their heads. And then came Mr. Ease, stepping forward. You served me, he hissed. You cursed my soul to wander. Mama Uka fell to her knees. She screamed, begged, clawed at the dark soil, just as the skeletal judge raised a blazing rod. The skies shattered. A gust of black wind rushed in. From it emerged the Sisters of the Shadow. Eyes still stitched shut, they moved like wind-blown cloth, chanting, She is ours. Her punishment is not for you to give. The tribunal hissed and wailed, but they knew better than to challenge the sisters. With one slash of a ghostly blade, the chains fell off Mama Uka's wrists, and she vanished back into her body, gasping. Alive, but marked. Mama Uka awoke with a gasp, clutching her chest, sweat soaking through her wrapper. She was alive. She was back, but something was wrong. Her right palm burned. Not from fire, but from something deeper, like an ember buried under skin. She uncurled her fingers. There it was, a mark, circular, ancient, black, but glowing from within like slow, seeping coal. The symbol of a bound soul, a curse given to those whose debts must still be paid in both worlds. She screamed, but no one came. From that moment forward, every time she lied, the mark burned. Every time she stirred her pot with malice or deceit, it seared her skin. And as she peered into her mirror, the mark was no longer alone. A second one had begun to form. On her neck, Ugochi stood in front of the old mirror that hung in the hallway of her mother's compound, a relic so ancient, no dust dared touch it. She had always been beautiful. It's not just beautiful, magnetic. Her skin glowed like oiled mahogany. Her hips swayed like a melody. Her lips seemed carved from prayer. But that night, something changed. As the candles flickered, she saw another version of herself staring back. A withered, wrinkled old woman with sagging cheeks, hollow eyes, and her exact face. She blinked. The image remained. On the mirror's wooden frame, hidden symbols began to glow, symbols she'd seen her mother tracing into the garden soil at midnight. Suddenly, Mama Uka's voice echoed from behind. Your beauty, your charm, your glow were bought, Ugochi, with pieces of me. Ugochi turned, confused. I gave the Sisters of the Shadow not just corpse water for cooking, both my youth, my glow, my beauty. Everything I could have been is now you. Tears welled in Ugochi's eyes. She touched her face. It was still perfect. A few days later, a man visited Mama Uka in her shop. Mama Uka thought the man was just another traveler. He wore a simple shirt and looked poor. But his eyes? They cut through time. He didn't order food. He didn't sit. He walked straight up to her stall, looked her dead in the eye, and whispered just loud enough for her alone. Retrace your steps, woman. Undo the path you've built with bones and broth, or the ground beneath your feet will boil you alive. She laughed, shaky but loud. You must be mad, she spat. The man didn't flinch. I was once like you. I cooked souls for power, until I ate my own mother's shadow. Mama Uka's face froze. She stepped back slightly, but he followed with a single pointed finger. The end of your pretentious, evil throne is nearer than your next recipe. And when it comes, you won't be able to cook your way out. With that, he walked away. And when she peered through the window, there were no footprints behind him. Days passed since the warning. Mama Uka, stubborn and unshaken, continued her dark ritual, ordering water from the washed dead, boiling it beneath her cauldron of secrets. And then it happened. A fresh batch arrived in a covered gourd, steaming with essence. She didn't ask questions. She never did. But this time, the corpse from which the water came was blood. Her blood. It was her niece, Adaora, crushed in a road crash. The body had been handled by strangers, the funeral arranged without her knowledge, and the water collected, unlabeled, brought by a mortuary assistant who simply needed the extra money. That night, Mama Uka stirred as usual, but the pot didn't bubble. It screamed. A face emerged from the steam. Adaora's face, twisted in rage, her mouth gasping as though drowning in fire. Mama Uka froze and scared. She had broken the one rule set by the Sisters of the Shadow. Never feed the living from the water of your own blood. It started with a small scar on Ugochi's shoulder. Then came hot blisters. And by evening, her once glowing skin was pocked with sores. Her smooth back bent slightly. Her hair graying at the edges, and her eyes, no longer brilliant, began to dim. She hadn't fallen. She hadn't eaten anything new. But something was dying inside her. Mama Uka held her daughter in trembling arms, screaming her name, calling her ancestors, begging the sisters for mercy. But none answered. Because the price was never just to keep Ugochi beautiful. It was to transfer life, from mama to daughter. But now Mama Uka had cooked her own blood, violated the pact, and the magic began to reverse. Everything she had sacrificed for Ugochi began to pull back, painfully. The youth, the glow, the protection, the beauty, gone. Ugochi moaned weakly. Mama! It's burning. Inside, Mama Uka screamed into the wind. Take me back! But the mark on her palm only burned hotter. The reversal had begun. That night, Ugochi, feverish and hollow, rose from her mat like something pulled by invisible strings. Her eyes, though heavy, were open and blank, and her footsteps led her straight to the mirror in the hallway. The same mirror where her beauty once reflected like a charm. But this time, the glass had cracked into 3 jagged lines. She looked in and saw herself, at age 92, wrinkled, toothless, hunched, skin flaking, like dried yam peel. It blinked once, and then it spoke. You were borrowed time. Now your receipt is due. Suddenly flames surrounded the frame, and the cracked lines rearranged into sisterhood symbols. A message burned into the glass. Return the beauty or return the souls. Behind her, the Sisters of the Shadow had arrived. All 4. One placed a hand on her shoulder. The air froze. "You have what was never yours," one whispered. "Choose." Mama Uka knelt on the floor, candle in hand, tears streaming freely as she begged. Not for herself. "Not this time. Please. Spare Ugochi. Let me pay more. Let me give more. Take my voice, my sight, my body, but not her life." From the shadows, the 4 sisters of the shadow appeared, tall, veiled in cloaks darker than any night, their presence bending the very air around them. They did not speak with mouths, but with wind that whispered in fire. "One more chance," they echoed as one. "But if your storeroom is breached again, if one more living soul steps where the truth is kept, you will not die quietly. You will die forever." Mama Uka's hands shook. She nodded. "I swear it," she whispered. "On my blood, on my soul." The candle between them blew out, and the room grew silent. Ugochi's breathing in the other room eased slightly. She had been given time. Ugochi had healed. Not just healed, transformed. Weeks down the lane, Ugochi met Kelly. He is handsome, calm, God-fearing, and quiet rich. He was everything the village girls whispered dreams about, and he only had eyes for her. Weeks into their courtship, Ugochi finally brought him to Mama Uka's restaurant. The air was warm, the day blessed, the food ready. "Sit here," she smiled. "Let me serve you our family stew." Kelly nodded, then whispered, "Please, where's the toilet?" A kind voice pointed him toward the back, but in the dim hallway he took a wrong turn. He opened the storeroom, and everything changed. Inside, rows of clay jars, each vibrating faintly. A pot in the center steamed with green mist, whispering voices that had no lips. He stepped inside. At that moment, Ugochi returned with the tray. She stopped. The door was open. "Kelly!" she screamed. He turned. Behind him, the mist had begun to form faces. Mama Uka, hearing the scream, ran from the kitchen. Her eyes met the open door. Her knees buckled. "No, you promised!" she screamed to the heavens. Because now, the contract was broken. The sisters were watching. The door had opened. The warning was broken. The sisters had seen. And so it began. Inside the restaurant, as customers sat enjoying bowls of Mama Uka's latest Oha delicacy, the room shifted. The walls pulsed. The ceiling groaned. The smell of stew soured into the stink of decay. Mama Uka staggered forward, holding her stomach. A voice echoed, "It's time!" A whisper crawled through the air. "Confess or dissolve." Her voice, once firm, now cracked like dry wood. She stood on a bench, her skin already peeling, her mouth trembling. "I used corpse water!" she screamed. Everyone froze. "I fed you the essence of the dead. I boiled your pastor's spirit. I made your souls bend to shadows." The scream shattered bowls. The customers began to vomit violently, screaming, clutching their stomachs, some even fainting. Blood seeped from the floorboards. The mark on her palm burst into flames, and the sisters began to whisper again. The village didn't sleep that night. The air was thick with silence and a strange fog that curled into faces. Mama Uka sat alone in her kitchen, eyes wide, lips trembling, as the floorboards creaked and the candles flared. One by one, the spirits of the consumed arrived. Nduka, the first customer who vanished, still holding his spoon. Mr. Ez, skin like cracking stone, yet eyes blazing with revenge. They sat at the table, every one of them. A full banquet formed, bowls of bitterleaf, egusi, oha, yam porridge. The exact dishes she once served. A voice echoed from the dark. "Now, feed them. Feed them what you fed them before, and pray they don't eat you instead." Mama Uka trembled. She reached for a ladle. Her hands were bone. From behind, the sisters watched, silent. A guest placed a bowl before her. It was full of her own shadow. She screamed. Outside, villagers gathered, eyes widened, watching the impossible scene unfolding through windows that had never existed. The banquet of shadows had begun. The feast had ended. Not with laughter or full bellies, but with silence, the kind that waits to devour. Mama Uka sat paralyzed as the spirits faded into smoke, their whispers clinging to her skin like sweat. The candles around her had burned down to the bone. And then they appeared, the sisters of the shadow, no longer veiled, no longer silent. Their eyes glowed white, their mouths, once stitched, now dripped ink. They surrounded her, speaking in a voice that shook the trees. "You fed the living with the dead. You boiled your bloodline. You stirred the hunger of demons. And still you begged not for redemption but delay." They raised their arms. A flame, purple and black, hovered above her head. "This is the judgment flame. If your soul is still yours, it will flicker. If not, it will burn." Mama Uka screamed as the flame descended slowly. Her eyes flashed with memories of Ugochi's first steps, of empty pots once filled with desperation, of the first whisper from Enkem. The flame hovered, then ignited. Her entire body was lifted in air, glowing from within like a lantern ready to shatter. The villagers watched, screamed. Some ran, some knelt. Ugochi fainted. And then, the light died. Mama Uka collapsed, alive but broken. One sister stepped forward and whispered, "You have one night left. Use it well." The fire crackled before her. Mama Uka sat beneath the moon, alone, her silhouette barely more than smoke in the night. Around her, the spirits of those she wronged flickered in and out of view, watching, not speaking. Her body was failing, but her mind remained sharp. She held a small bowl in her hand, her final recipe. One she had not made before, one only whispered among the oldest witches. The soup of silence. It required no spices, no corpse water, only truth. She stirred it slowly, whispering into the steam. "I was a mother before I was a monster." One by one, each of the spirits began to nod, not with forgiveness, but with recognition. As the first light of dawn approached, Mama Uka stood and poured the soup into the earth, feeding it back to the ancestors. Then she closed her eyes. No thunder, no scream, just silence. When Ugochi found her that morning, all that remained was the burned mark on the ground, and a faint scent of oha and rain. Mama Uka was gone, but her story was never forgotten. Years melted into seasons. Years passed. Ugochi became stronger, wiser, and more touched forever by fire. Married Kelly, the man who once wandered too close to a secret meant to be buried. Against all odds, their love survived the curse. Their union was not only of hearts, but of healing. They moved to the city and opened a restaurant named Living Fire, but this time, no secret stirred in the broth. The food was pure, blessed by prayer and driven by truth. People lined up for hours, drawn not by supernatural pull, but by a genuine taste of redemption. The restaurant's logo bore an image of fire, surrounded by eyes, a silent homage to a past that could never be erased. Lessons learned in the haunting tale of Mama Uka. We witness how ambition can drift into obsession, when the hunger for success overtakes the soul. What began as a desire to be recognized for her cooking turned into a path laced with dark rituals and forbidden knowledge. She used corpse water to enchant her meals, drawing crowds, riches, and influence. But every spell has a price, and every shortcut taken through darkness carries a deeper debt. Mama Uka believed power could be controlled. She believed silence could protect her. But truth, like fire, finds its way through cracks. Her customers began to suffer, her lies unraveled, and the very spirits she manipulated rose up against her. Her downfall teaches us that when we use sacred gifts, like nurturing, cooking, or creativity, for selfish or corrupt reasons, those gifts become weapons. The heart of the story reminds us that true blessings come from integrity, patience, and respect for ancestral laws. When Mama Uka broke the rule of using water from a relative's body, she didn't just break a law, she broke the invisible thread of balance, and it cost her everything. Her daughter Ugochi, once blessed by her mother's dark sacrifice, bore the consequences too. Beauty that isn't earned but bought with blood rots from the inside. Yet through confession, suffering, and transformation, redemption slowly emerges. Mama Uka, in her final breath, chose to destroy the remnants of her curse, leaving behind a lesson rather than a legacy. Never trade integrity for instant success. What comes fast may leave you empty. Remember, whatever you hide today may destroy you tomorrow. Guard your truth, not your lies. Ambition should never come at the cost of those we love. There are lines even desperation should not cross. Outer beauty fades. Only what's built on honor and love lasts. You can rise again, but healing demands honesty, sacrifice, and change.